Before you open a brand new planner, before you start setting goals, or telling yourself that next year has to be better, I want you to pause right here for a second. If you try to plan 2026 without understanding how 2025 actually impacted you, you're going to end up repeating the same patterns, just with new dates on the calendar. Today's episode is not about dreaming bigger or pushing harder. It's about giving you a framework to plan your next year in a way that actually works, using my own business, Pretty Pineapple Bead, as the example. If 2025 felt messy, heavy, inconsistent, or a lot like survival mode, this episode is going to help you figure out what to do next. Hey friend, and welcome back to Sparkle and Shine. I'm Cassandra, your creative biz bestie and the heart behind Pretty Pineapple Bead, where I make colorful, confidence-boosting jewelry for women who want to feel vibrant, bold, and totally themselves. Here on the show, we talk all things small business, mindset, marketing, growth, and everything in between, with a whole lot of encouragement and real talk along the way. In the last episode, we reflected on 2025. Today, we're taking that reflection and turning it into a clear starting point for planning 2026. I want you to be able to walk away from this episode knowing exactly where to begin. The first step in planning any new year is naming the season you were actually in last year, not the one you wish you had been in. For me, 2025 was a mix of hope and survival. Something that shaped how the year started for me happened almost immediately, like within the first week of January. A boutique that carried my jewelry on consignment had decided they were no longer going to carry my pieces. Now, this really wasn't a massive blow to my business, and nothing was wrong with me, my business, or my products. But emotionally, it hit me hard. It was unexpected, it felt like failure, and even though I knew logically that it wasn't, it still shook my confidence more than I expected at the very start of the year. This was a time where I didn't feel fully grounded or all that confident in my business. So instead of starting the year steady, I started it feeling slightly shaken. From there, a lot of my decisions quietly shifted into survival mode. I began to ask myself, what event can I actually afford to do next? What products can I sell quickly? What do I need to do to make everything work? So here's the planning lesson. You cannot plan a growth year if you're still judging yourself for a survival year. Before you plan anything for 2026, I want you to ask yourself, what season was I actually in? Where did I adapt instead of expand? And where did I just try to make it through? This step alone changes how you plan everything else. Once you name the season you were in, the next step is auditing your energy honestly. Not your ambition, not your ideas, but your actual capacity. One of the biggest mistakes I made in 2025 was continuing to plan as if my energy hadn't changed. I created content plans, I set expectations for consistency. I told myself I'd figure it out, but my energy was different. I was planning as if I had unlimited time, focus, and motivation, without really accounting for the fact that I'm human. I get tired, life happens, and my energy naturally fluctuates. And the place that disconnect showed up the most, that was content creation, because that was the area where I constantly asked myself to show up publicly, confidently, and consistently. Content creation drained me, not because I didn't have ideas, but because I cared deeply about quality and confidence. When something didn't look or feel the way I wanted it to, I stalled. That's where procrastination and imposter syndrome would creep in. And instead of adjusting the plan, I'd fall off completely and feel like I had to start all over again. And at the same time, inventory was quietly adding to that drain. Inventory weighed on me, literally. It wasn't just about having a lot of product. It was the constant visual reminder that I had so much sitting there just waiting to be sold. And at the time, I didn't fully realize how much that was impacting me, both emotionally and creatively. At one point, I had over 1,500 pieces of jewelry on hand, most of it living in my living room. And I want to be really clear about this part. I didn't just feel uninspired. I stopped creating jewelry entirely. The last time I truly created pieces for a collection, that was November of 2024 when I released the Essential Color Collection. From November 2024 to November 2025, a full year, I didn't create new jewelry for collections. Not because I didn't love it, not because I ran out of ideas, but because I felt overwhelmed and buried. My creativity didn't disappear. It went quiet. That spark, it finally came back in November of 2025 when I created the Color Pops collection. That collection didn't exactly sell out the way I hoped, but that's not the win here. The win was that I actually wanted to create again. So here's the planning lesson. If your energy drops this year, your plan needs to change, not your self-worth. Go ahead and ask yourself, what drained my energy consistently? What gave me energy even in small doses? And where did I try to push through instead of adjusting? Your plan for 2026 needs to be around real energy, not ideal energy. All right. The next step is getting honest about what actually felt aligned. For me, the most aligned parts of Pretty Pineapple Bead in 2025 were the DIY bead bar, custom orders, and in-person events. And what stood out when I looked at those side by side was that none of them felt rushed or performative. They all gave me space to slow down, talk to people, and actually be present. With the DIY bead bar, I got to watch people play with color, experiment, laugh, and create something that felt like them. It reminded me why color and creativity matter so much to me in the first place. Custom orders gave me direction when I felt creatively stuck. Having someone trust me with a vision or ask me to create something meaningful for them reignited that creative spark in a way I couldn't force on my own. And in-person events, even on long or tiring days, still felt aligned because I could see reactions in real time. I could explain my work, hear people's stories, and feel that exchange of energy that's really hard to replicate online. What all of these had in common wasn't just connection with customers. It was connection to my creativity and connection to why I started Pretty Pineapple Bead in the first place. And once I could see clearly what gave me energy, it became impossible to ignore what was quietly draining it, even if I didn't want to admit it at first. What felt heaviest was online content, overposting, and trying to do everything at once. So instead of asking, how do I do more in 2026? I'm asking, what do I want to stop forcing? As you plan your next year, ask yourself, which offers energized me? Which ones felt draining or obligatory? If I could focus on just one or two core things, what would they be? Planning is as much about subtraction as it is addition. Once you've gotten honest about what actually feels aligned in your business and what you're done forcing, the next question becomes this: how exactly do you talk about those things? Because clarity alone doesn't move your business forward if no one knows what you offer. And at the same time, visibility that ignores your energy or alignment will burn you out just as fast. So the next part of planning for 2026 isn't about being everywhere or doing more marketing. It's about deciding what sustainable visibility actually looks like for you. Visibility was one of the most discouraging parts of 2025 for me. Instagram growth was slow. Engagement was low. I had story sales that didn't convert. And when visibility is low, confidence quietly takes a hit. In-person visibility felt easier for me because it was immediate and human. I could see reactions, have conversations, explain my work, and feel that connection in real time. Online visibility felt heavier and quieter because so much of it happened in silence. I'd put time and energy into content, hit publish, and then wait, sometimes with very little feedback or response. And when that silence stretched on, it was hard not to internalize it, even when I knew better. So the lesson for 2026, especially when it comes to planning, isn't do more. It's defining visibility that doesn't cost you your confidence. So go ahead and ask yourself, where does visibility feel natural? Where does it feel performative or draining? And what kind of visibility could I realistically sustain all year? Visibility should support your business, not make you question your worth. And here's the thing. Clarity, aligned offers, and sustainable visibility still aren't enough on their own, because even the best plans fall apart without support. If you don't have systems or structure in place, everything we've talked about so far becomes harder to follow through on, especially on low energy days or busy weeks. That's where structure comes in, not as another thing to manage, but as support. We're not looking for rigid schedules or perfection here, but instead, we want structure that actually helps you keep going when motivation dips and life happens. For me, the chaos of 2025 didn't come from a lack of effort. It came from a lack of structure that supported my real life. I overplanned. I procrastinated when overwhelmed. And when I fell off track, it felt like everything fell apart. So for 2026, structure needs to be flexible, supportive, and realistic. I'm thinking loose routines, a monthly focus, and clear priorities. Structure exists to reduce decision fatigue, not to control your day or box you in. Ask yourself, what decisions did I make over and over this year? Where did I feel stuck starting? And what systems would make action easier? If your plan only works when you're motivated, yeah, it's not a plan. So here's how I want you to use this episode. You don't need to plan your entire year today, but sometime over the next week, sit down and journal through these questions. What season was I in this year? What drained my energy? What gave me energy? What do I want more of in 2026? And what do I want less of? Those answers are your starting point. I will also be sharing a planning worksheet on my Substack to help guide you through this step by step. But even without the worksheet, the framework in this episode is enough to begin. Remember, friend, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are learning how to build in a way that actually supports you. Until next time, keep showing up with heart, keep trusting yourself, and keep shining.